They're scrambling to capture all this data and professionally put it into all the reports and the pay cycles and the systems that month over month, quarter after quarter, year over year become, pay statements, W-2s, financial statements for the company. This is very important high wire stuff, but quite honestly, it doesn't have to be a struggle like that. And when people see what technology now can do in robust, repeatable fashion, that it's not just a unreachable, unobtainable electronic software goal, but that it really does work, they can change the dynamic from managing transactions and sweating over dollars and cents to actually being able to have systems that flow smoothly, where the employees themselves help manage their own data, and they can focus again on what got them into HR and finance in the first place to help employees develop and companies grow.
Welcome to this week's podcast from the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council at sbccouncil.org and Forbes Books at forbesbooks.com.
I am here with Matt Mikkelson. He is the Director of Customer Success for the company Cimplx. They're at cimplx.com. Matt, thanks for joining us here on the SBE Council podcast with Forbes Books. Before we go anywhere in this conversation, I am fascinated by what you do at Cimplx. And I'll tell you, my fascination grew the minute I went to your website, because there's a photo there, very prominent. I'm going to describe it. There's a woman sitting on her desk, barefoot, in a yoga pose. She looks like she is very much at peace. There's an apple on the desk. There's a computer. There's an aloe vera plant, which I think is kind of a holistic-y kind of thing. And she just looks like she is in a state of grace. And next to her, it says, "Complex made simple." How could we all not want to know about that? Matt Mikkelson from Cimplx, thanks for joining us, and tell us about Cimplx and how we too can spend a little time sitting on the desk doing yoga instead of behind the desk freaking out.
My pleasure. Thanks for the time and the opportunity to share. So making the complex simple was the beginning of Cimplx. Actually, Cimplx began with the Affordable Care Act. Whatever your politics are, however you feel about that law, the Affordable Care Act it must be complied with. And while everybody in the current political universe understands that the personal mandate has gone away, the employer mandate is very much in place and will be very difficult in the future to change. Probably won't. So long story short, there was a need for companies to be able to comply with all the complexities of the law and the offerings and the requirements. So Cimplx built a very simple algorithm. Some of your listeners and folks may understand that TurboTax was something that helped make taxes easier. Well, we really considered ourselves TurboTax for the Affordable Care Act. That's what we did. So we made the complexity of that law simple to comply with, and we took that to technology at a greater length. So we've since broadened our services to many business-to-business needs that a company will need to manage well. And there are a lot of complexities dealing with payroll and the core data that supply the Affordable Care Act information. And Cimplx is really good at helping finance and HR and management leaders make all of those things much more simple. And lastly, to engage their employees well. That's really why they get into business, to help their employees and their customers do things well. And making things simple, as you said, is something we all seek to strive to.
So I have to ask, did Cimplx exist before the Affordable Health Care Act was passed, or did you actually form the company recognizing that there was an opportunity there, that it was something so complex it was going to take a team like yours to actually simplify it and turn it into, as you called it, I think it's a brilliant positioning statement, like TurboTax for ACA?
Formed specifically with the genesis of the Affordable Care Act. Our leaders were literally right in the mix. We're in Washington, we're in meetings around the country, we're part and parcel of the interactions between the general public and industry that was actually solicited during the time, and across party lines. There were, multiple folks asking for input. We were able to provide that. We connected with the Small Business Economic Council and other entities to engage our client base and the potential client base, to ask questions and develop what would eventually be a simple process for employers to follow. Its country is going in a certain way. They want employers to respond in a certain fashion. Our goal was to help make employers comply with whatever the law would require in a fashion that was repeatable, that they could succeed at.
Okay, so let's say I'm a small business owner or a C-suite executive, and I'm listening to you describe this, and we've been having pain over this for, I don't remember how many years, but it's been enough now, right? And I want it now. What do I do to take advantage of this service that you offer?
Well, you reach out and contact us, and we're going to have a little conversation about the number of employees you have, how often your employees change throughout the year, how the law applies to you. There's first something called an ALE, an applicable large employer determination, that has to be done. The law only applies to employers of a certain size, but that is not an easy determination to make. You can't just say, well, I've got 39 employees, I'm under the 50 limit, therefore I am not an ALE or an applicable large employer, so the law doesn't apply to me. It doesn't work that way. There are provisions that say if you have a certain number of part-time individuals or seasonal individuals, there are algorithms and calculations to be made throughout the year where someone who has 39 or 44 employees or something like that could actually be an applicable large employer. So there are determinations to make. That's the first step. You call us, ask us to help you make that determination. And if that determination reveals that you are subject to the law, then it's a matter of saying, well, okay, how is that done? What do you know already about the law, and what services do you need from us? We have sort of a small, medium, large flavors of our service that employers may choose to partake in.
And you mentioned since launching with that as your business strategy, TurboTax for the Affordable Care Act, that you've now grown into other services for businesses. So tell us about those other services.
That's really the great second level story of Cimplx. In our interactions with so many clients across the country, so many businesses and employers, regarding the ACA compliance, we dealt specifically with their payroll data. That's really the genesis, the origin of all that information. If you're going to monitor and understand how many employees you have and offer them insurance, they have to be on payroll. Are they full-time? Are they part-time? Do you need to offer insurance or not? That sort of thing. We need that payroll data, and we use that payroll data. And in the process of doing so, we saw that the nation's employers are really not using a comprehensive all-in-one tool for managing their employee HR data. They have politely, the HR leaders and CFO leaders around the country have politely put together a nuts and bolts grouping of services.
So, Matt, what you're saying is HR executives around the country are essentially using duct tape to make everything work in the absence of one suite that does it all for them.
That is exactly correct. Employers are using multi-systems, different services, spreadsheets, and often manual tools stitched together to make a comprehensive system, and they are losing all sorts of efficiency, dollars, and opportunities to serve their employees well in those gaps between all those systems.
So again, the way to find out more about Matt and his company, he's Matt Mikkelson. He's the Director of Customer Success for Cimplx. They're at Cimplx.com. So the way to find out more is obviously to go to the website and make a phone call. And how many companies, what has been the rate of growth for your company since the launch of ACA?
Well, the ACA was a stratospheric 0 to 10,000 moment for this industry. We really couldn't keep up, to be quite honest with you, with the inquiries, and that growth was literally almost unchartable. Every day there were more inquiries and eventually more sales than the day before, and that went on for a period of a year. At this point, the number of companies that have been able to make the transactions and file with the Affordable Care Act has grown to complete most employers, but the employers now also have felt the payroll pain and the systems pain of getting that core information. And the industry of human capital management, of everything that HR and human resources entails, is now one of the largest growth software industries in technology today.
And I want to ask you one other question about this. Again, let's say I own a small business, or I'm a C-suite executive, and I find out more about Cimplx, and we want to make this transition. How hard or easy are you able to make that transition? Because we already know what we have is bad, and it's kind of scary to think that the transition might even be a little worse before it gets better. And I'm hoping you'll say, no, actually, we know exactly how to do it, and it's going to be pain-free.
It's a fantastic question. And in fact, this issue is the biggest hurdle for most employers who want to make a change. It's really not that hard to have a discussion with an employer and reveal these multiple systems, these different touch points, manual systems, and many exposure areas to compliance problems that all that reentry creates. It's easy to expose that. The biggest problem is right now, those employers on a daily, weekly basis have relied on their payroll company and all the transactions they do to track employee time, to track employee time off, to capture benefits. Leaving that behind, letting go of that and moving to a new environment is the biggest hurdle, because you leave today, tomorrow you've got to have a system that does it perfectly well. You can't mispay your employees. You can't not offer benefits. They can't show up at the healthcare facility and not have benefits signed up. So it has to work seamlessly the moment you cut over. That is the nature of what Cimplx does well. We understand the journey of going from your current condition to your desired condition. And it is that journey, that shared project, that we excel at.
I am going to guess that, given that you're the director of customer success, I'm talking with Matt Mikkelson. The company is Cimplx. They're at cimplx.com. I am going to guess that part of your job, or part of the job of you and your team, is a little bit of psychologist, because as good as this may sound, fear may be the only thing that stops me from going forward, even though I know going forward is going to introduce a way of life that's going to be much better. But sometimes we're stopped by fear. Is that something that you encounter? And I'm really asking so that if listeners now are saying, yeah, but I'm afraid, that if they should get over their fear, let's tell them that they should get over their fear.
Absolutely. If you bring several leaders into a group discussion, and they were able to be rather honest, perhaps with an adult beverage or two around to help get it going, you would very quickly see them and hear them sharing stories of transactional system management that are almost scary. On a daily, weekly basis, they're scrambling to capture all this data and professionally put it into all the reports and the pay cycles and the systems that month over month, quarter after quarter, year over year become, pay statements, W-2s, financial statements for the company. This is very important high wire stuff, and it's very easy to see and hear the shared pain of getting those things to happen on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. But it's something that is seen as a badge of courage. You don't see CFOs and HR leaders walking into their leadership moments in boardrooms saying, Boy, we narrowly defeated the scary prospect of all these transactions again this month. We're all going to get paid, and we should celebrate that. They certainly don't have that environment. They have to play it cool, and quite honestly, it doesn't have to be a struggle like that. And when people see what technology now can do in robust, repeatable fashion, that it's not just a unreachable, unobtainable electronic software goal, but that it really does work, they can change the dynamic from managing transactions and sweating over dollars and cents to actually being able to have systems that flow smoothly, where the employees themselves help manage their own data, and they can focus again on what got them into HR and finance in the first place, to help employees develop and companies grow.
That sounds pretty good. Actually, it sounds fantastic.
It certainly is. We've got a lot of success stories.
So you're a guy, I guess, who loves going to work every day, because you must get a lot of love for the work you do, you and your team.
Sure we do, yeah.
He's Matt Mikkelson. The company is Cimplx, Cimplx, Cimplx.com. He's the director of customer success. And I want to change gears a little bit, Matt. You and I almost met at an event in Charlotte, North Carolina, where President Trump signed an executive order on the strengthening of retirement security in America. And I want to, first of all, I'd love to hear your impressions of the event. And then more importantly, I want to hear your thoughts on how this executive order is going to not only help you at Cimplx, but also help your customers, because you're in kind of a unique place of seeing how an executive order like this can actually make a difference to lots of companies, because you're interfacing with lots of companies.
Excellent. Yeah, so the event was a good one. And honestly, when I was there, it sounds like you were there too. I'm sorry we didn't connect. When I was there, I was struck by the power of the office. I think I would have felt pretty much the same way whatever president had been there. It was wonderful to see a moment where the employee, business, and because we all go out and have to make a living each day, and government were getting together for the right reasons. One might be for or against the specific language of the legislation, but it was a civics moment to me, and I was surprised at how I would felt that. I felt more, with our current president, he has a tremendous reputation, but I felt the power of the office and the professionals and the people who put that whole event together, the security of it. It was a good American moment, and that's what struck me most about the event itself.
I was, just to build on what you just said, I was really struck by the beautiful bipartisanness of the moment. I mean, it was what he signed, this executive order on strengthening retirement security in America. In fact, after the event, I told lots of friends and business associates about where I had been and about the executive order that was signed. And universally, whether these were friends or associates who were generally Republicans or Democrats, political, apolitical, everyone I talked to about it said, wow, that's a really great piece of legislation. And also, the question kind of came up, what took so long? It seemed like what was signed there should have been a no-brainer a long time ago. And with that in mind, I'd love to hear you talk about how this executive order will impact your business and how you think it will impact the businesses of your clients.
I have to tell you, being, most of our clients are small businesses, small to medium size, I suppose, by almost any measure, number of employees, revenue, what have you. And as everybody knows, that is the engine of economic might in America. For every, Coca-Cola and Xerox or what have you, there are thousands of small employers that employ us all. These businesses are started by people, sure, they're economic wealth engines, but not just for themselves. All the folks that I meet who run companies every day, and the leaders that I talk to are very proud, wonderfully proud, that their businesses are wealth engines for their employees to develop a great life, for their kids to go to school and to do all the things in life that they want to do. They see their operations as a ship for all of their people to come along on the American dream. And this legislation specifically is geared to allowing groups of companies to group together under entities. It could be a council or any kind of group that to pool them together to put their 401ks or their financial savings plans and financial wellness grouping together, bonding together to be able to save money and offer programs that only large companies can do in scale at the moment. And I completely agree. This is something that, regardless of your political stripes or how you felt, should really have been done in America long ago. It's absolutely wonderful to be able to be able to go and talk about this with our client companies and other folks. And as far as what it does for businesses like that, small businesses, are built on their people, the emotions of people, the how they feel about their job, how well they do their job each day impacts a small business just dramatically. And for people to feel like their financial futures have a little better step of security, a measure of security, and that they will attain their dream, that they will be able to plan for those end goals of their financial needs, whether it's getting someone to go to college or planning for retirement or helping able to take care of a sick or elderly parent. Those moments make employees more engaged. There's an endless loop of reinforced value to the company. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm sure it will result in the types of successes that were planned by the legislation.
And have you heard your clients talking with you specifically about it, or is it something that you are sharing with your clients so they understand that this is something that they can now take advantage of?
The inquiries on this sort of thing are off the charts. I think at this point there are still many entities, chambers of commerce and other groups trying to figure out who and how and why is the best model. This is capitalism in its purest form. If you're going to allow companies to band together to share 401k or savings capabilities, what's the best mechanism for that? What are the ideas for that? So those things are coming together quickly, and products are being, and opportunities are actually coming online as we speak. But a lot of people are inquiring about them either generically, they have news articles, and we do mention it. A large part of what we do is not only payroll, but payroll connects to benefits that you put in place, and it comes to your 401k deductions. So it's a natural part of our discussion with client companies that offer these services to their employees.
That's great. Well, Matt Mikkelson, Director of Customer Success for Cimplx, Cimplx.com. I want to ask you one last question, because I think what you tell us in response will help us understand where our companies will be going, because we'll be following you. What do you see as the future for Cimplx? You started with one idea, which was to essentially be the turbo tax for the Affordable Care Act for businesses. You've grown since then. Can you give us a sort of a sneak preview of the future? Because I think it's probably not only going to be the future for you at Cimplx, but also be the future for us.
Absolutely. I think the best way I could describe that future would be this. If you were a very small company and you started it out of your garage, you would know the moment something ships, the moment something came in, the moment you got a sale, the moment you paid a bill, because you're physically writing those checks, you're seeing the postal person and all those things happening. The second you put the dynamics of business behind another building, a second location, you've got the phone, the internet, fax machines still exist, shipping clerks in and out, it becomes a transactional dilemma. Businesses do two things. They serve their customers with the product or service that they were originally intended to do, and then they manage admin and they manage transactions. The future of Cimplx and making technology more simple is a reduction in the amount of effort, time, and energy spent on managing transactions. And Cimplx was already looking and moving towards making simple those complex transactions that exist today, wherever they are. They could be an import-export administration. They could be between business-to-business services, paying power bills and other things. It's beyond electronic payments. It's in everything that a company does to lower the stressful impact of managing transactions and allow companies and business people to serve the customers and the employees who make those businesses run. That to us is the simplicity that we look to bring to the commerce market.
I like that vision. I hope it gets here soon.
We're going to do our best.
He is Matt Mikkelson. The company is Cimplx. It's Cimplx, Cimplx.com. As they say on their website, complex made simple. And you've heard Matt describe that perfectly here. Matt, thanks for joining us here on the SBE Council podcast with Forbes Books. Of course, SBE Council is at sbecouncil.org, on Twitter and Facebook at SBE Council. Matt, it was such a pleasure talking with you, hearing about Cimplx. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast from the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council at sbecouncil.org and Forbes Books at forbesbooks.com.